I'd like to call the regular meeting of Cobre Board of Education into session. It is 5 o'clock. Please let the minutes show that all board members are here. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, is the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Entertain a motion for approval of agenda items.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Gomez, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Guadiana. Any corrections, deletions to the agenda?
The executive session, I'm sorry. And, let's see. This is the revised one?
You know what? No, this is the old one. I just realized we didn't print copies of the new one. The corrections were made and emailed to everyone, but we didn't print the new one.
So the correction was basically that instead of saying just the generic information about an identifiable student, it was about information related to special education services
Individual
provided
special
to,
education student.
to an individual student.
And then the B where it says open regular meeting, that was actually item 10.
Yep.
And then item 10 is 11, and item 11 is 12. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item B, approval of the minutes of July 26th board meeting. Entertain a motion. Motion by Mr. Cordova, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Holguin. Any corrections to the minutes?
And regarding to the American Rescue Plan, there was a comment that's listed here that said Mr. Guadiana mentioned that there was grant money funding for Mrs. Varela's and Mrs. Davis's position as well. And my concern there wasn't that there was funding, but that the funding that we were told was for those positions was supplemented by operational funds to the tune of $22,000 each, for which we were never told that.
So what do we need to correct on the minutes?
Say that Mr. Guadiana mentioned that reviewing the grants is particularly important as demonstrated when we were told that a fund, the Varela and Davis positions were funded 100% by a grant, when later on we found out they were being supplemented by operational funds to the tune of $22,000 each.
Mr. President, are we on the July 26 minutes, or are we on the
Yes,
August
July the
minutes?
26th.
The 26th?
Item
Okay.
B.
I think Mr. Guadiana,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Guadiana, that was on the August 9th minutes, right? And we're on July 26th?
Okay.
Let's
That's a different, we're on this one right now. July 26th. The one you're talking about is August 9th.
Okay. Sorry about that. So, is that mentioned at all in the other one? So,
Okay, we're on the 26th. Anything else on the 26th? Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Entertain a motion for approval of minutes of August 9th. Entertain a motion for approval of the minutes of August 9th.
So moved.
Motion by Mr.
Okay.
Gomez, second? Second by Mr. Cordova. Any corrections?
Yeah, I'll go back to the comment I just made, and related, to, it's on the second page, third paragraph.
So what do you wanted to say there?
Say that Mr. Guadiana raised concern about the necessity to review grants, prior to, approving them, particularly as they pertain to new positions. As demonstrated when we were told that a previous position held by Mrs. Varela and Mrs. David was fully grant funded, and instead it was supplemented by $22,000 each from operational funds.
Okay. Is Sandy out there?
No, Sandy went home sick, but it's being recorded, so we can
Okay.
catch it on the recording.
All right. Any other comments?
I found just a couple of cosmetic things that need to be fixed. On the first, under the first action item, it says duet instead of do. So it should be D-U-E, and take off the T. And then in the, under action items where it says Pat Ives, it says the Public of Education is trying, and it should say the Public Education Department.
Okay.
And then, under superintendent search, it says Mr. Guillen will be explaining how the superintendent search works and how the people that do the search operate and take off for us. And then, on the back page, the page 2, where it says Mr. Guillen kindly states, it should just say Mr. Guillen stated. And then the first complete paragraph there, use of facilities, that was a repeat, it was already on the front.
Okay. Any others?
Yeah, also on the first page, the last sentence, last paragraph, in the middle, there's a statement that says, I guess, that would be the process of opening up to, it says that it would be open to anybody, not just limited to the school board. That should be not just limited to the New Mexico School Board Association.
Okay. Anything else? Cordova, you had?
I had a question, point of order, on these minutes. Should we table them and bring them back to the next board meeting, especially to the fact that there is going to be, personnel involved and there's going to be money in there? I don't think it's right to approve them now and then make the changes, later, after they have been approved.
Okay.
And I would say that that's our general process, is to make the statement about changes. If we're going to wait for the changes to be made because it relates to personnel, this is a reflection of the conversation that was had in open session. And there's no restrictions regarding
I'm not questioning the relationship or or what we've talked about before. I'm just saying that if we approve them tonight, then over at the office, they're going to be changed to read something. If it's not exactly to what we want it to say, are we in violation of the Open Meetings Act in approving them before they are finalized? That's all the question that I'm asking.
Yes, the only thing that I was going to say is that we bring these, we table them right now and bring them back at the next board meeting with the corrections for approval. Is that okay? Okay? Is that where we're at? Okay, so the minutes of August 9th will be brought back for approval with the changes that we just discussed. They will be tabled. Item D, Ms. Holguin.
Good evening, Mr. President, Superintendent, members of the board. The first item is the review of bills, which includes checks that were paid out in July of this year for the start of the new fiscal year.
Mr. President, I recommend approval of the review of bills as presented by Terry.
You heard the recommendation, do you hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Cordova, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Gomez. Any questions on the bills?
I still haven't, in the Finance Committee, we discussed this, and that was really good to see.
Your
And,
microphone,
what's that?
your microphone.
Oh, sorry. In the Finance Committee, we discussed this, and it was really good to see that, and that's, I think, a real big step in the right direction. But in the Finance Committee meeting, I raised a comment related to I think it was $15,000 or $16,000 that went to, for legal services.
Yes,
And you stated that I would be providing information as to what that was about.
In the executive.
in executive session with Mrs. Varela.
Okay, and that's not on the agenda for this meeting?
It is.
Okay, okay. Look forward to that then. Thank you.
Any other comment? Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
The next two items are related. That's why it's one action item. So, the bar that's for Fund 27406 is for K-5 Plus Pilot, which is, a new grant fund. And what it's doing is taking the place of what the decrease bar is for in operational. So there's an operational decrease bar for a total of 667,325, which the SCG, which the PED has removed from the SCG based on the fact that we're not going with that K-5 program, but that we are opting into the K-5 Plus program. And so the K-5 Plus bar is what we're actually asking them to fund. Are there any questions?
So if I could expand on that a little bit. Originally, when we wrote the grant for the K-5 Plus, we were looking at adding 25 days before the school year started, and that would have been in the SEG. But the PED opened up a new program called K-5 Plus 140 Pilot, which allowed us the opportunity to add 45 minutes to the school day at the elementary, which equates to the 25 days. And that's a different grant, and that's why it's grant funded and not in the SEG any longer.
I have a question in anticipation of a presentation next week as if, how it impacts this next school board meeting, how it impacts this, if we need to make kind of a holder for that, or we can modify that. And that's going to be the presentation related to the the 3-year-old with the Head Start.
So we do have pre-K that is also included in the extended day. We're paying them right now out of the Circle Grant. So they do have an extended day as well.
Okay, but outside of that, just the funding that may be impacted based on the presentation we're going to hear.
And right now, we don't know how it's gonna impact us, because we need to look at that deeper, so we're not really sure yet.
So we'd still be open to changes
Of
if that...
course.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Any other comments? Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. P&M donation?
The next item includes a payment advice from PNM. PNM has given us a donation, and this indicates the payment advice that $2,000, and they went ahead and did an ACH, so they deposited straight into our bank account, so it wasn't a check. So this is the payment advice sheet that shows that was made.
Okay.
So I do recommend approval of the donation from PNM. It is to help support students who may be in need of school supplies. So an email has already been sent to all the building principals, letting them know that we do have this money, and also to Tony Sosa, because he works a lot with our families, to let them know that if they are in need of any backpacks, school supplies, that this money is available. We have had one principal already make a request for use of some of the funds.
Okay. Any other comments?
Are comments going out to parents?
I'm sorry?
Are comments going out to parents? And
To let the parents know that we have this money available?
yes.
We haven't. Usually what we do is when parents are in need of stuff, they go through the principals or the secretaries or their teachers. So that information has been shared with them. Tony Sosa is the person who works a lot with our families, so he's aware of it as well, to let families know. A lot of times they contact him to let them know that they're in need of certain supplies or even clothes. He's taken some of our students to the store to even help them buy clothes, so he's aware, and he does share that information with the parents he meets with.
And so the likelihood of all the $2,000 being spent for this is...
Pretty likely that it's gonna be spent soon.
Okay.
Like I
and-
say, the first request was for $200 already from one school.
And my point is that if it is that we don't get enough requests to spend it, maybe we should go a little bit farther out to reach out to public to see if there's still some people who are still in need, not knowing about the process. Okay, thank you.
Okay. You heard the recommendation. Do you hear a motion?
I move.
Motion by Mr. Guadiana, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Gomez. Any other comments? Just, let's make sure that we send them a thank you note to PNM. Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item E.
Item E is, you could in case there's any questions. On the American Rescue Plan, CARES 3, I did bring this to the last board meeting. We had approved the grade out part, the one that was approved on 8-9. I submitted the application on 8-10, as I had told the board I was going to do. And then I got an email right back from PED saying that the other third had been opened up. So that's why we're bringing this back to the board meeting today. So what we're looking at is the items and the numbers that are on the far right corner. So when we look at this funding, we're not looking at as the shaded part being year 1 and the white part being year 2. It's all one grant spread over a 2-year period. So the additional items that we have with the other additional third is continuing with after-school programs, recovery services for special education, and possibly looking at EAs for some of the larger classrooms. We are looking at helping to support remote learning and salaries for staff. Right now we have 6 elementary students, 1 middle school student, and 4 high school students that are on remote learning. So this funding would help support those teachers who are providing those services after school and during their prep periods. We also have, looking at a counselor for 2 years, providing, again, some additional support to some of our students from low-income disabilities and English learners and children and youth in foster homes. Again, additional funding for school supplies, clothing, hygiene products, and hotspots. And then, let me see on the second page. We have Individuals with Disabilities Act looking at recovery services for our teachers to be able to provide that in after-school programs for special ed teachers and ancillary staff. A social worker for 2 years, and I know the amounts don't show 74,000 each year, but that's what's been budgeted. So the 90 and the 58, that's what that would be for. And we do have the additional funds to help support any of the CTE programs at the high school that might need some additional support. We did put $500 into training for sanitizing and minimizing the spread of infectious diseases. That training has been provided free to us so far through PALMS, but we put some money in there just in case we need that. Additional money for PPE. I know the nurses are actually putting together a pretty big order right now. We're going through masks really, really quickly right now. We do have a cleaning contract that if we have schools that have to close for a few days so that we can sanitize the schools, we do have some money set aside for that. Or on the weekends that maybe we don't have custodians that are available to come in and do that, we do have some money put aside for that. We do have funding for a custodian for 2 years, an additional nurse for 2 years. We do have money set aside also for outdoor learning environments, improving the air quality through buying filters and looking at enhancing the duct system. Additional hotspots if we need them. Some of the software that the technology department uses to help support the support that the parents and students need where they are at home with use of the Chromebooks, staff laptop replacement, and maybe Terry or Victor wants to give a little bit more information on the staff laptop replacement and how we're doing that.
Okay, so we began with the replacement lease with the CARES 1 funding, and it comes to about $140,000 a year over the 3-year period. There are certain options that we were able to get on the lease. One is a 5% forgiveness. If at the end of the first year, we decided that the number of laptops that we ordered on the lease is too many and we're not utilizing them, that we can send them back and they will adjust the lease, the terms of the lease, so that we're not paying, the lease for 3 years for laptops that we're not utilizing. Victor will be able to tell you how we're rolling that out, but it is something that instead of replacing them all at once, because they do keep the programs on their current, rather than us having staff with laptops that will go obsolete, within a matter of time from the time we get them. So I'll turn that over to Victor for a minute.
Good evening. So as Terry was saying, these new laptops that we got for the entire staff, they're coming with dual monitors. It was off the survey and request that was brought to our attention last year when the pandemic started. So we'll be getting a second monitor, the laptop, a newer version docking station where it's kind of like the little Amazon, like the Google Home speakers, built-in speaker and microphone. So it'll be a little more quality in case we do have to go back remote. They'll be able to be heard a little better. And with the second monitor, there's new software that we pushed out as well for the interactive projectors inside their classrooms. So it'll be like having three monitors to work off of, so they can utilize their lesson plan on one, their Google Meet on another, or whatever it may be, and whatever they want to use the third one for. In the past, they could only duplicate the screen. Now they'll be able to utilize it like if they had three things all together. So they'll be able to do a little bit more at once. But the laptops, yeah, they're really good. They're really nice. We've already completed almost 3 schools. We're ahead of the program on that. We're just waiting for staff to respond to emails. Hopefully we'll be completed within the next, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks. We should have everyone swapped out.
And Victor, can you also talk about the students in the dual credit courses?
What was that?
The students in the dual enrollment courses?
Oh, so the reason why we also purchased the 200 laptops is right now we have approximately 84 students that are in the dual enrollment program with Western Mexico University. So last year we had, I think it was 55, and we had to utilize old laptops, old technology, and it was a struggle. Then the teacher on our end here in the district was really having a hard time. So we kind of included them in this. So whenever we finish the staff, we'll move over to utilizing some of these new laptops to accommodate those students. And if we run out, then we'll use the retired laptops for that purpose. Any questions?
I do have one question. Some of the money addresses repairing damaged equipment. And have we had parents pay for anything that's been damaged that could come out of these funds? Either damaged or lost?
So right now, when it comes to the lost devices, where we're having a hard time utilizing that. With the damaged Chromebooks, we are getting them to follow the damage policy we have in place, and they'll get on a contract with the school, with the assigned school that the student's at, and either get put in a payment plan or pay it in full. That's really, you know, we're still working on that. We didn't really have much guidance on that. It was new to us, so we're just learning as we go, but right now that's what we have in place, and we do have quite a bit that are participating in and being willing to assist us with trying to get the device replaced. And with that, that money we'll use to buy replacement parts like the chargers and or replacement devices.
Okay, because if the money's available, especially like the charger itself is like $70 or something like that by itself. So I would hope that we're making use of that money first before we ask for the parents or the students to reimburse if that money is available through the grants.
It's going to depend on what happened to the laptop.
Yeah, and it also falls down to depending on what happened to the laptop, because a lot of it is actually, it's not accidental damage, it's purposely done. You know, we've had a lot of Chromebooks that have every single hole filled with bread or candy or soda. So that's like, us as a district, are we just going to continue to replace that and bite the bullet on trying to replace? It's hard when you have a limited budget, you know. With some of this funding, hopefully, you know, we'll be able to buy some to keep on hand, but right now it's also, we're trying to raise adults, and there is a responsibility that goes with that.
Just as a suggestion, maybe it's good to set up criteria and follow that uniformly so one person can say, I know that person got theirs replaced and mine didn't get replaced. And that way you can say, this is the criteria we use and we follow it consistently.
Yeah.
Isn't that what?
And that's really what we're doing, is the principals are trying to follow the damage policy plan we have in place. It's just up to them on how they're presenting it, on either doing it, you know, it's up to the parent, because we know a lot of parents, you know, it's very impoverished, so not everyone can afford even $5 a month, you know, but anything is better than nothing, but that's what it's the arrangement the principal's making with that parent.
Okay.
Anything else?
Other things we have in here is, again, we are paying for Edgenuity for our elementary students that are on remote learning, so we have money budgeted to be able to continue that as we have students who want to continue with remote. We have an at-risk coordinator for 2 years. We are looking at adding a second attendance success coach for 2 years. And then, after-school programs, we have money budgeted for that so that we can continue with after-school programs to help address, learning loss. And then, that's all we have on the second side, because the rest was already, we had gone through that at the last meeting.
You have a recommendation?
So I recommend approval of the other third of the ARP application as presented.
You heard the recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Guadiana, second.
I'll second. I'll second.
Second by Mr. Holguin. Any other comments, questions?
I'd like to express my gratitude again for having the Finance Committee review this. This is much more productive, and I think it has strengthens our meeting our responsibility and better coordinated. So thank you very much for that going through.
Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item F.
So we do have a use of facilities form. It doesn't have the dates on there, so I did call Mr. Acosta. He is looking at using the field this weekend, August 28th and 29th, for a tournament that they're going to have, a baseball tournament that's going to include Cobre, Silver, and Deming youth. So I do recommend approval of the facilities request.
You heard the recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Gomez, second.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Guadiana. Any questions or comments?
I have a question. So on the first page of the form, about, I don't know, 2/3 of the way down, it says certificate of insurance with school district named as additional insured. Yes or no? That's not checked. I'm wondering if that's a liability concern for Cobre schools. Is it an AAU or USA type event?
I honestly don't know. I would have to follow up with Mr. Acosta on those questions.
Okay, I just noticed that wasn't checked, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Any other comments?
I can, Ms. Montoya, can you check with him and then we'll come back, we can come back to the vote if you want to, Mr. Sepulveda?
Is that a concern for the school? Right, right.
Okay. Any other comments?
Let's table that until we find out whether the insurance is provided or not.
It's not an action item.
Yeah.
Use of facilities, yeah. Use of facilities is an action item. It's on F.
Is it on
It's F, mm-hmm,
on here? No?
yes.
On your,
Oh, it is on this
yeah.
one. I'm not sure which version you have.
Both? Okay.
You recommend table?
Yeah, let's table it until we get some additional information from Mr. Acosta.
Okay. That moves us to unfinished business.
We don't have anything? We don't have
Okay.
anything?
That moves us to public input, and we had one person, Mr. Medrano.
Yes, sir. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'd like to bring some light to masking and vaccinations for our children. I wrote a letter, so. Dear parents and staff, I would like to start off by thanking the vaccinated and unvaccinated for making the decisions that is best for them. We are all here to help decide the best course for our children, It is important that we respect each other's decisions for our families, for we all do it in love and to the best of our abilities. I figure the facts help the most. The U.S. has 74.2 million children, and sadly, we have lost 19 due to COVID. That is 1 in 3,905,263. To help give perspective, 477 children die each year from the flu, and another 2,600 teens died last year due to suicide. But these are matters without our choosing. To bring it closer to home, I have two more. Every year we are in a car, we have a 1 in 107 chance of dying. One that we don't think of is our children playing football, where 11 children die on average each year out of several million that play. We are asking the vaccinated and the unvaccinated be a choice for the parents, especially since risk is little to none over the other decisions in life. The level of education outweighs this matter. The kids have missed too much already and are falling behind. The lessons and skills they learn are with them for life, and it is important that we do not impede that. This letter I wrote hoping that the issues that come up forward for all of us don't affect the way our children learn, that we don't take them back to the house where they're missing out on education, that they stay here with you guys. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comments?
Can I respond to that briefly? Mr. Medrano, I appreciate all your concerns, and I absolutely do not refute any of it, of what you say. The part that we have to take into consideration, though, are the staff as well, and their numbers, adult numbers, are significantly different. And the people that go home, or when the children go home, the people that they may expose to. Children may very well be a carrier and not really suffer any significant symptoms. And our goal is to get as much in-person education as possible. And even if we have to look at, if we receive state or federal guidance to say that, we have to do a hybrid, that would still be on a voluntary basis, that we would still open things up. Closing would be a totally different thing, and that would be a scenario that I hope we never get to. But please know that last year, when we did open up the hybrid, it was on a voluntary basis. So people could come in, and I've been very pleased with the administration's provision of having that voluntary basis and having the equipment now, and now we're better placed for that. So I dread if we have to go any further than what we're going right now, and we'll start again if we have to. But I appreciate what you're saying, and know that it's what we want to do too, but also with the consideration of staff and family members. Okay. You're welcome.
Anybody else with public input? Victor? Okay. Move it to administration.
Mr. President, can we go back to the use of facilities? Liability release? No, she said they don't have, there's no insurance, but they are signing liability waivers.
And liability waivers are usually not worth the paper they're written on. Because they sign a paper, that doesn't mean they can't sue. And that is certainly set up to prevent that. But if there's something that's negligent, something that seems to be intentional or something, that doesn't protect us from that. And if it's a requirement, I would know what the circumstances are that we would waive that requirement.
Did he say what organization?
Okay. Well, it was tabled for the next meeting, so maybe
No,
we can.
well, we would have to vote on it because the tournament would be this weekend. We tabled it till she got additional information for us. So we do need to go ahead and make a vote because the tournament would be this weekend if we approve it or not approve it.
Okay. We already had a motion and a second on that. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Please let the minutes show that one opposed. Motion carries. Brings us to Superintendent Report.
Actually, we are under administration. Item A, American Rescue Plan, Homeless 2. Application, Mr. Sosa will be presenting on that.
Good evening. So yeah, I just want to give you an update on the grant that we worked on for the American Rescue Plan Homeless 2. So since being named the McKinney-Vento liaison, a lot of my job has just been identifying these students in the district who qualify for homelessness or at risk to being homeless. I can't breathe in this mask. So part of that is just trying to strengthen the program and getting funding for the kids. So that led to us applying for the American Rescue Plan Homeless 2. The grant provides $800 million in support for elementary and secondary students who are homeless or impacted by COVID. This is all part of the American Rescue Plan Homeless Children and Youth Program, which provides funding to identify students and just create an environment that allows homeless students or students who are what we call in transition to attend like a normal school day like any other student would. Or if they choose to participate in like a school activity such as a sport, then we're able to provide them with what they need to be ready for that sport. This grant's a little more flexible and accommodating to students and staff who are going to work with them. Specifically, this grant allows the district to purchase short-term housing or emergency housing for homeless or students who are in transition in their families. In the past, there was pretty rigid guidelines for how you could provide that, and it would say like 1 to 2 days you could provide temporary shelter. With this one, it's an undisclosed amount, so we're able to provide, a better situation for them. Also with this grant, it actually allows you to provide the family with gift cards, which is something that in most grants is frowned upon. So this one, like I said, is a lot more accommodating and allows us to serve the families better. We submitted the grant on August 19th. We submitted a day early. Districts will be notified August 30th if we were awarded that, which I've been led to believe we will be awarded something, and something's always better than nothing. And actually, I've worked pretty close with Dana Malone, who is at the state level, she's in charge of the McKinney-Vento program. And she was saying that us and another district in the state were the shining or rising stars of the state, because we were actually able to identify more homeless students last year than most districts were. Most districts were losing students or losing where they went, but we were actually able to identify more than we had in the past. So she was pretty proud of us, and led me to believe that because we identified more that we would be receiving something. This is a 2-year grant, and all funds must be expended by September 30th, 2024.
Do you remember the rationale, the 6,000?
So that was part of the grant was if you received Title I funds that were under $5,000 and you were asked to create a consortium with other districts, that way there was more funding to be handed out. However, with our Title I funds, I believe we were over the limit we had 6,000. So we were able to apply on our own. Funding, I don't think it actually set a set amount that would be awarded. Ms. Malone led me to believe that it was going to be based off of however many kids that we had identified in the district, and that way she didn't want to give a set amount so that they could make sure everybody had what they needed for those students. So I don't believe there was an actual set amount that we applied for. It was just going to be like what they felt would be necessary for the kids to thrive. But that's it. Like I said, I'm looking forward to to getting it going. I think it's going to really strengthen our program, and the kids are going to be the ones that benefit. And then I just wanted to piggyback to Mr. Guadiana about the student outreach and the parent outreach. So obviously last year we did take a hit. We weren't able to be in the schools and do student outreach for like the programs such as McKinney-Vento and attendance and things like that, and getting those students, for example, the school supplies. But this year I'm really looking forward to ramping up parent and student engagement like we had in the past. That's always been something that I've prided myself with, is just being out there in the community or being out there in the schools. I mean, the students know where if they need something, and then this year actually set in with orientation here at the high school and let students know, if it's a pencil you need or something, we'll get you a pencil. If it's something like, whatever you need to be successful at school, we're gonna get it done for you. So, like I said, we are gonna up that parent engagement. So that's it. Any questions?
Can I ask a question? You said that the numbers of homeless people had gone up last year. Can you give me a ballpark of what the numbers are?
So as of the way when we ended school last year, we had identified 52 students in the district who were considered to be homeless or in a doubled up situation.
So do you want to explain the definition of homeless and what qualifies?
Yeah, so there's a lot of guidelines. It's not like we just see students living out on the street. So there are some criteria they meet, obviously, if they are being displaced, but it also includes migratory children, students or children who are living with family members, students who are living, multiple families in one house so that they're actually having to sleep on a couch. If you don't have your own bed, then technically you could be coded as McKinney-Vento student. Another one of those things too that is kind of a hot topic too is families who were laid off from the mine. Those families could also be considered for a McKinney-Vento placement.
So the changes now, as the eviction freeze is going to be lifted here relatively soon. Is there going to be money to pay for more than just a few days to pay, maybe help people catch up on owed rent?
Yeah, so there is quite a bit of funding, and just the federal level and things, and like I said, working close with Mrs. Malone from the state level. She's constantly saying, we have this program available, and one of them, I can't think of it off the top of my head, but there is funding that helps with rent or families that, if you have a down payment, or they'll kind of help you, buy a home, things like that. So there is a lot of funding out there. Honestly, you just have to get creative and look for what matches for your families.
Could that become more visible within the district?
Yeah, and like I said, since taking over that position, I do look forward to ramping up, engagement, letting everybody know what's available out there.
And the other part that's not being addressed is, in terms of the federal government, are the people that are falling behind on their mortgages.
Yeah.
And there's no help, although
Yeah.
that should be something that I hope we're advocating for with these funds. And so out of the $8 million, that's the state funding?
Yeah, that's state funded, yeah.
Okay. It would be good if we could get kind of like a quarterly report on how many people we've been serving in this, and put that out, and hopefully that'll encourage more people to participate.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we move to Superintendent Report, Joyce.
There was no action needed on this?
No. Okay, so the first item on the superintendent report is the final training summary for the board members. Board members are required to earn 5 hours per year The report shows that Mr. Sepulveda has 35.5 hours, Mr. Cordova 31 hours, Mr. Gomez 1 hour, Mr. Guadiana 2 hours, and Mr. Holguin 2 hours. The three? Oh, sorry. Okay, apologize, Mr. Holguin. And the training year does run from September 1st to August 31st. The training summary does also include a list of mandated trainings that can be used towards the 5 hours that are required.
Yes, and when some of those trainings come available, I don't know if they're going to continue. I know that last year they were doing them all online, but I don't know if they're going to continue doing that or not. I know that they've already had the law conference, which was in person training in Taos. No, I'm sorry, the board retreat was in Taos. That they did face-to-face. And that was not online, because I asked Joe, because I wasn't able to go to it. But I asked him, and he said, no, it wasn't going to be online. But there are some other ones that I think they're going to put online. Mr. Cordova?
We have Activities Association meeting Wednesday in Albuquerque, and it's going to be in person. And then Joe Guillen is getting a meeting ready for the board of directors so that we can figure out what's going to happen with the policies and the policy service, since the head person passed away. And that one's going to be online. It's not going to be in person.
Yeah, and that's coming up on the 30th, I think.
On the 30th, yeah.
30th of this month?
Do the all board members have the information needed to
No.
attend any of this?
No. The third meeting of the 30th is for the board of directors.
Okay.
And for the New Mexico Activities Association is through the school board. I'm part of that committee, so I go through the school board, New Mexico School Board Association.
Yeah, and our region meeting's going to be coming up here pretty soon. Yeah.
The meeting you discussed, Mr. Cordova, is that related to our effort with the policies, or is it statewide?
The policy?
Yes.
As far as I know, it's going to be statewide for all the districts that belong to the policy service.
Okay.
Yeah, see, the reason that they're having it is because they're going to appoint a new, I guess I'd say director for our region down here. The one that we had, which we were working with, passed away. So right now we don't have nobody working there. But they're going to be appointing one so we can continue with our updating our policies.
And additional training that I found online was actually provided by PED, and it's under the category of charter schools, but it is applicable to regular school board members as well. And that is, it gives sessions, and it's given on a calendar dates. I think the next one is this coming Wednesday, and it starts a whole new process. And it does ethics, it does finance 1, 2, and some of them have a third level of finance. Then it also does school board assessments. It does a number of different things that I personally plan to attend, especially the finance 1, 2, and 3.
And in order to get points for your training, they have to be approved by the state and by the New Mexico Activities, by the New Mexico School Boards Association. And that's something that maybe we need to check with Joe and see if some of those count.
There are links from the New Mexico School Board Association to these trainings. So it would look like it, but certainly.
Because on the second page, it does have a list of what counts for mandated training, so there are multiple things under there. Multiple trainings.
Mr. President, would you be able to provide us the dates for these trainings, upcoming trainings?
Did you say the dates for these trainings? Right now, I don't know what the dates are, but I can check with Joe and find out and get back with you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And one thing I found in my search for training is that school districts have their own training. And I believe it is required for school districts to put together a curriculum for training. And are we actually contemplating doing such a thing?
I think right now, the only one that it'll be, board candidate workshop that I need to get with Joe and he'll send me a PowerPoint on it. But that's the only one right now on that.
Because there's a lot of school districts that have the trainings and they go into finance, they go into their policies, they go into a lot of things that are particular to them, which we would benefit from if we were to do that here. And being that 3 positions are opening up and we really don't have a good knowledge base on our policies or any of the other things that we should have in place, like the critical nature of board self-assessments and the strategic plan in particular. And as we're moving forward with the superintendent search, these are critical items that we can convey to a candidate. This is our goal, this is our direction, and set up in all of the time that Mr. Mendoza was superintendent. We rarely put any measurable criteria on his, only towards the end, and we never even assessed attaining that measurement. But these are things that would help us move in a direction of unity and a focus on, make sure that the focus is on the students. That's really hard to see from attending these meetings.
Okay. Mr. President, the trainings that happen at the schools, as far as I've been informed, I don't know, maybe it has changed now. But every time that they want to put a training at the school, the people that put on the training are master board people. In other words, the people that have gone through all the training and are master board members. And what Joe Guillen has been, he's been a stickler about it. If you have a master board person, they do not provide a training in your own school. You have a training at another school or whatever, and if you're going to have a training here, it's scheduled with somebody else that's a master board person. So it takes a little bit of planning through Joe, and that's the last time that I visited it, because he has told us a couple of times that we wanted to do a training, Toy and myself. He said, yeah, if you want to do a training, let me know. But you might have to go to Ruidoso, you might have to go to West Las Vegas or somewhere else, but you won't be able to do it for your own district. So maybe our president could check into that.
And from what I saw, that wasn't at all reflected in any of the criteria that I saw. And what I saw was the New Mexico School Board Association and PED requests for our submitting, a district to submit what their training would be, and then they would review it and approve it or not, or offer alternatives to it or improvements.
For the upcoming Region 8 meeting, or our region meeting, one of the meetings is planned by the board of directors here, and the other one's planned by them.
This doesn't have to do with the regional meetings. This is something that's submitted to either PED or directly to the New Mexico School Board Association for their approval.
Yeah, but like Mr. Cordova says, we can submit it, but then when they approve it, they'll find a facilitator to come down and do it. They won't let us do our own training. And I think the reason that happened is some school districts were saying, oh, well, so-and-so put on the training for us, and actually they got credit and stuff, which training never happened. So that's why they're kind of rotating that around now.
I would assume credit would be given to any training that you attend that's been approved.
Yeah, but like Mr. Cordova says, me and him are master board members, but we can't put on the training for our own district. They won't let us. because of that, I think.
Yeah, and that's not criteria that I've seen in what I've seen needs to be done for,
Yeah. I can check with him again and see if he's changed his mind, but I know that was the last time that he told us. Okay, Joyce, let's move on to fundraisers.
Okay, under fundraisers, I do have a few. The first one is from Cheer to sell fan gear from Morningstar, and their financial estimate is $900. We have a fundraiser from Snell Middle School to sell fan gear for the purpose of good of this school, which helps support field trips, special events, and incentive awards. Their financial estimate is $4,000. We have a fundraiser from Hurley Elementary to sell world's finest chocolate bars to support good of this school, which also does support field trips, special events, and incentive awards. Their financial estimate is $1,500. And then we have another one from Skills USA to do a 50-50 at football games. And their financial estimate is $100, but I'm not sure if that's actually correct. I don't know what they usually make for the games. They do have a 50-50 on 8/20, 9/10, 9/24, 10/15, and 10/29 scheduled for the football games. Okay, under updated NMPED guidance, I did give you a copy of the updated mask guidance and surveillance testing guidance. The state is now requiring everyone to wear masks whether or not they are vaccinated. They are asking staff or teachers to be vaccinated, and if they're not vaccinated, that they surveillance test on a weekly basis. So right now for our district, we do have 87% of our staff are fully vaccinated, and 86 students, which is 16% of middle school and high school, that are fully vaccinated right now.
could you repeat the numbers? I didn't hear you.
219 staff are fully vaccinated, 87%, and 86 students for 16%. And when we're looking at the mask mandate, we are required to wear masks indoors, which includes student and staff, spectators at indoor competitions. Masks are recommended but not required for outdoors except in close contact assignments. And then students in athletics and extracurricular activities continue to be encouraged to participate in surveillance testing, but it is voluntary. Under our enrollment, as a district, we have increased from 22 students over end of year last year. All schools have increased in enrollment except for Central Elementary that has decreased in enrollment. So right now we're up 22 from the end of year. Ms. Davis is going to give us an updated report on staffing.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, and Ms. Varela. As of June 2020, we've had 53 staff retired, resignations or non-renewals. Out of that, 28 were resignations, 5 non-renewals, and 20 retirements. We also have had since that time hired 37 new hires from June 1st to present. Right now, we have 3 schools that are fully staffed: Central Elementary, San Lorenzo, and Cobre High School. The following schools are still needing this staff. Bayard Elementary needs 1 lunch monitor and half person for deaf and hard of hearing, SPED teacher. That's a .5 position. Snell Middle School needs a reading interventionist. Hurley Elementary, a 3rd grade teacher. In the district, we're still looking at hiring a .5 OT, a .5 deaf and hard of hearing, a social worker and speech, and 1 counselor. And that's all we have left to fulfill for this district, for this year in our district. Any questions?
Could Could you go over the numbers again for the retirement and people that have left?
Yes. For retirement, we had 53 staff that either retired, resigned, or non-renewals. We had 28 resignations, 5 non-renewals, and 20 retirements.
20, what was the last?
20 staff that retired,
And
and 37 new hires this year.
percentage-wise, what does that look like for staff?
For staff right now, last year we had about 237 people employed. This year we have 222 staff employed. So we did lose quite a few people, but we did rehire 37, which were jobs that, with our student counts that went down, we didn't have to hire as many because we didn't need as many staff this year. And I don't have it broken down by percentages, Mr. Guadiana.
So, but it's roughly around 20%.
Around that.
And does that trigger anything in terms of doing some analysis of what the reason for people leaving is so high?
I think on some part, due to COVID, some people didn't want to return back to work for that. Some were just ready to retire, and they retired. And that's why we lost a lot. You kind of get inflections of retiring. You have groups of people that come in at one time, and then they leave at the same time, and so we get a lot of retirements at one time. I know here in about 3 years, we're probably going to get another big group of people that are probably ready to retire, so we'll end up seeing a lot of, a huge number probably again of turnover staff due to retirements. And then for a long time, there shouldn't be a lot of retirements because there's a lot of new people in. So that's part of the reason maybe on why I wouldn't know unless I went back and looked on if they gave a reason of why they didn't want to return back to work. But most of them, that I got a chance to speak to where either they moved away due to the mines closing or because of COVID, they didn't want to come back, or the ones that retired, they were just ready to retire.
And I do know of some who relocated to other places to be closer to family.
So I'm guessing that it's probably not a practice of our school to do an exit interview with people that are resigning, because that would give us some statistics on why people are leaving. It would be interesting to know those reasons.
They do give us a letter of resignation, Mr. Holguin, but usually on there, sometimes that they put just personal reasons. They don't really give us like, I'm leaving because of this or that. They just leave it as, I'm leaving for personal reasons, and we're not going to pry into the why.
The reason I ask is because when I talk with teachers or custodians or maintenance workers, there's a sentiment of not being happy. And there's an observation that they share that they think a lot of people have left here for reasons of being unhappy with what's going on. And a level of 20% is really one that should draw attention. And your comments are pretty reflective of typical things that happen. But they're not really indicative of what the environment is. And that's really what I'm looking for is if we have a 20% or better reduction or turnover rate, then that is something that I'd like to understand why. And it's not a matter of finding out what's wrong. It's a matter of fixing what people see as being barriers to them enjoying their job. One of the greatest, there was a talk about leadership in the last meeting, and leadership isn't ignoring I should say leadership is empowering people, giving them the best opportunity to be the best they can be. And there's a lot of things that go on here that are contrary to that. There are positions that are filled without ever being posted, family members being hired to work under other family members. That is, and the board's actions that I've been critical of. Those are things that tear apart the school district. It becomes a clique. and cliques can get their family members put into positions without having to advertise for them or allow other people to access that. These are areas that the board shouldn't stand for, and these are things that we should really look at addressing on a wide-scale basis. And if we want to talk about leadership, it'll be one that is focused on what we're intending to do. And so I really like the direction that we're going on giving information on the staffing, on where we have holes and where what we need to fill. That's a very positive thing. Hopefully we can tie that to performance in terms of saying this is, we've been lacking and we've been lacking a whole lot. And that's true of a lot of schools. But I appreciate the information you're bringing forward. I just hope we can move in a more constructive way to reduce our recidivism and move forward, give teachers a good reason to come to work, and give students teachers that are not feeling that they're being slighted. Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No.
Thank you.
The
Thank
last
you.
item under the superintendent report is open house. All our schools did hold an open house within the last 2 weeks. Some schools had a lot more people present than others. I know San Lorenzo held much of their meeting virtual, and then they did allow parents to come in smaller groups to meet with the teachers. So a combination of things were done for open house. We did have Terry and Victor, Mr. Peru, and Antonio that also went out and participated in all open houses except for Snell's and gave a presentation on the meal levy as well. And the reason that Snell's wasn't is they had their open I actually had sent out an email requesting that they let us know when their open house was, and just mixed signals, I guess, between us and Snell, and so we were not able to attend theirs. And that's all I have on my superintendent report.
Okay, thank you. And as you see there, the student rep will be on September 13. And this brings us to public input. Any other public input? Victor, do we have anybody?
I have one thing.
Okay, go ahead.
So just a question, with the additional days that we added this year because of the days that we missed last year and students having to go to school all week, Monday through Friday, I was just wondering, with all the schools operating Monday through Friday, I'm just wondering, is the administration office operating on Fridays as well? And if not, why?
So the administration office does not qualify for the extra funding. We put it all into the schools. And so I know that I'm on call all day long. I know I get phone calls all day long. I answer them. Ms. Davis does as well. Ms. Minus does as well. So we are available to staff, but we're pretty much working from home. We could have added ourselves to get the additional compensation that they're getting, but we just didn't think that was right, so we didn't add ourselves. But we have been available to answer calls, to meet with principals, to meet with teachers as we need to.
So wouldn't it be, easy enough to switch from 410s to 5/8s to accommodate the needs of the schools out there?
Yeah, we could look at that. The only thing is that we wouldn't leave after 8. I mean, we would still stay the 12 hours a day that we've been staying, but we could. And I think, Terry, you've been available on some of those Fridays as well, right, to help principals and people with purchase orders and quick requisitions that need to be done as well.
I'd like to chime in on that. speaking on contract days, nothing in the contracts was ever changed to accommodate the 4-day week. And during this, last school year, when I asked Mr. Mendoza, are staff working the 40-hour work weeks that are required within the contract? He said, yes. I live a block and a half from the school, the administration building. I don't see people staying there 10 hours a day, 4 days a week. I don't see that at all, not even remotely. And this requires a physical presence, not to say that I'm available by phone. And so we're not complying with our contracts. They've not been changed. They have been, they were based on a 5-day work week. And I agree with Mr. Holguin that the staff should be there, and by contract, they should be there. This is one of the things that really starts to set a tone between administration versus the rest of the employees. And a lot of the people that you're talking about, like for instance, Mrs. Holguin, or Ms. Holguin, she has a position that normally requires an inordinate amount of hours related to projects that are budget related. So sometimes it's a feast and famine environment. That's part of work. But the 40-hour work week isn't meant to encompass those peak periods. That's part of the job. And so I would like to see the requirement that people work the number of hours that they're required to work.
I can say that some of us work 70-plus hours a week as well.
And I would say that again is in those positions. I've worked in the positions where you don't go home. That doesn't change the pay. That doesn't change the requirement for the 80 hours every pay period. And so that's just part of the job, and you should have known that going into it. There's certainly that's true of all other school districts. But they work the 5-day week, and they work the 8 hours, and they still put in all the extra hours that are necessary to meet their requirements. We don't have different requirements than do the other school districts. This is something that we've allowed the previous administration to get away with, and it is something that continues to cause rift within the staff, saying there's a whole different set of rules for the people that work in the administration building than there is for people that work on their contracts for teaching kids. And having that availability and not being on call is a great benefit for the staff at the schools. And it also allows things to be done on a timely basis. For instance, this month we reviewed bills. It's the first time in quite some time that we reviewed bills. That should be a monthly routine thing. And last year and previous years, it was, we didn't have time. And that was allowed. We were okay with that. And that's wrong on our part, saying that is a mandate that we review the bills every month. If it is that working 4 days a week is not allowing the time to do that, that's another reason that we should be working 5 days a week. We shouldn't be coming up with this, we didn't have time.
I'm just not really sure right now that any schools would actually tell you that none of us was available to them if they did try contacting us. Because like I say, I know that I'm on the phone from 7 o'clock in the morning until 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon every Friday that they have been in school.
As probably are most superintendents. But we're even talking about hourly staff that get to take that time off. And they would be working unsupervised if the supervision wasn't there. That's part of the job. And your position requires a lot, no doubt. You're compensated accordingly. And that comes with the title that you have.
So, What we're talking about are the 10 extra days. We're not talking about we're not, as far as the additional ones that we're not there when the schools are there. Okay, we're talking 10 extra days. That's the ELTP. That's the only thing we're talking about. Because other than that, the rest of the schools are, the rest of the year, they're on 4 days and we're on 4 days. So we're only talking about the 10 extra days. That's all we're talking about, and that's what she's talking about. We didn't build administrative salaries into the grant that's giving the teachers and so forth an additional 25 days on the K-5 and the additional 10 days on the ELTP. So we're only talking about the 10 days that the others are being compensated, whereas we didn't build additional compensation into administrative salaries. So
And
those are the things that I just wanted to clarify for you when you're talking about those Fridays.
And
Because
it's
those would be the
technically-
only Fridays that the schools would be in session, but we're not there. So it would just be the 10 days, which
And
was the
it's
5.
Technically not the 10 days because we were on contract.
It was the
for
5
first
days
week.
in the beginning where 10 extra days were built into the 10 extra days, and we were there for 4. So we're really only talking 6 days, okay? So that they're getting additional compensation to be here where where the administrative staff, and we're probably talking, like she said, some of us are coming in, some of us are not there, but we're on call or whatever, and we understand the administrative part of our jobs, that we're not talking about getting additional compensation for working for those timeframes. But the administrative staff, where you would say, none of them are hourly. The accountants and so forth, none of them are hourly. So if they're working unsupervised, they're not on an hourly rate where they would be there without supervision. They would be there with, only with our, knowing that they're there. So, but they are not, like, their hours are not being tracked, or they're not there during the time when a supervisor is not available. So that is I just wanted to clarify that piece of it. And then also when I talk about contracts, that's correct. When we were doing the 4-day weeks, when we were saying that it was a 260-day contract, we've adjusted that, and we did adjust the hours that go every single day. Instead of going 4 10s and then 5 8s, on the 5-day weeks when they have professional development. On those days, we adjusted everything to go from, to make sure it was fit into a 226 day, which is actually the days on a contract. Instead of saying that we're 260s, when it was kind of 260s included 10 4-hour days and then 5 8-hour days, and what are we there this time from 7:30 to this day, where it's more consistent. So now it's the 8 to 5, right? So just to clarify those things.
And I would beg to differ with everything you said.
What's that?
I would beg to differ with everything you said.
You would do what now?
I would beg to differ with everything you said. This isn't about just those 10 days or the 5 days. This is about being there, and if it were that those 10 days and 5 days we're talking about as it affects to administration's already on the 200-plus days that it's supposed to be there.
Right,
which,
but I'm saying of additional
wait,
compensation, additional compensation.
the additional
for-
compensation is not the point. You would, if you're
I
already...
thought that was Mr. Holguin's point.
It is in the sense that, not in terms of you guys not getting it, or it was in terms of being available for when other people are at work.
Okay, well, then that part of it, that's not what I,
Yeah, that-
I was just clarifying whether or not, when Mrs. Varela answered about whether or not we're required to be there based on how the grant was written. So that's
and
what
my-
I was answering.
And my point was not to talk about the compensation. It was about the support to the schools. If the schools are working, then, you know, the district admin office ought to be open to provide support to the schools out there. That's my point that I'm trying to make, regardless of the compensation. I feel like we should try to build in flexibility to be able to accommodate for, you know, working, if the schools have to come in at work, you know, if the school's in session on a Friday, then the admin office ought to be flexible enough to come in on a Friday to support the schools, is my point, that we ought to build in that flexibility into the schedule.
And I took it to the point, that all Fridays should be there, because our contract, you mentioned altering the contract, but it didn't.
I didn't say altering. I never said
Modifying the
altering
contract?
a contract, no.
Modifying the contract?
No, I did not talk about modifying contracts or anything. I said actually offering the contract based on the number of days that we are in session.
You just said altering the contract based on the number of days?
I didn't say altering.
What did you say then?
I said that to reflect a contract correctly from when it was said that it was 260 days for compensation purposes. But there again, we're talking about compensation, and that wasn't the question. But I didn't say altering or modifying. I said that when you are now offering a contract for actual 4-day weeks, it turns out that it's a 226-day contract rather than a 260.
And our contracts say 226 days as opposed to 260 days, and it says 4 days a week as 10-hour days?
It doesn't say by week. It's not by week.
And it doesn't say by hours.
And it doesn't say by hours.
Mr. Cordova.
Mr. President, I think that this discussion needs to go to the board, and then maybe the board needs to get with the superintendent so we can get a plan to see how she is running her staff. The ones that we're talking about is the administration, and they're her staff, and she can let us know how she's running her staff, because this is not getting us anywhere. It's just an argument, and it's getting worse and worse, and you said, she said, whatever, and that's my point.
And I agree with Mr. Cordova. This is certainly a discussion that should be had, but we should be more driving this discussion than being the receiving end of it.
Other than that, it is personnel, and we don't deal in personnel.
This wasn't personnel.
So let's move to executive session. Go ahead. Okay. And I still had some comments on public input. One is I spoke with Chon Fierro, and Chon Fierro raised the concern that I told him I'd bring up here, and it relates to the crossing guards and the traffic management, particularly like at Snell. Is there some work with the police department in terms of making sure that the school crossings are safe, and in some, we don't even have lines anymore on Central Avenue for that, so we don't have crosswalks. And so he was wanting to see if there's some kind of effort that the school can make with the city in terms of providing safe crossing for students.
Did the mayor tell you that Bayard only has 3 units available? That's all Bayard has, and there's no one normally in the morning, so the sheriff's office passes by, but we're not going to patrol it because we have the county to take care of. But that's the issue with the law enforcement in Bayard. There's only 3 units available.
It wasn't so much the discussion about what's available as opposed to what can be done. And I remember a long time ago, there were school guard crossing people. I was one of them, that students would be involved in that. So it's a matter of looking at, there are very limited resources there. But it's something that a dialogue that should take place between the school administration and the sheriff's, not the sheriff's, but the city, to see what can be done to better patrol that, to provide better safety. The other comment that I have, one of the other comments that I have is related to the Google Meet option. Is that now better highlighted on the school page, or is it?
It has been. It has been for the last couple months. And, you know, to answer you on that directly, the posting the Google Meet is actually more time consuming because there's no one attending. And if we're to be able to stream it publicly to our meeting, it'd be so much easier. Right now, it took us all day to figure out how to get this going and this schedule. But the Google Meet, there's no one attending.
So, and so the YouTube, people have expressed that they've had difficulty submitting a comment or participating in the chat, and they wondered if that was turned off.
The reason for the whole move was you guys wanted the public, but on YouTube they have to kind of stream. They don't just post who they are. On the Google Meet they have to sign in with their email address to join the meeting. They don't want to.
So.
It got to the point where it's too derogatory all these negative comments, and you assigning me to read those, where you guys get the emails, you guys get the stuff, no one answers these questions. So if you guys want that, then you gotta find someone that's gonna be able to just read that for you. Because I'm not gonna read that. I'll read Google Meet, but I'm not gonna read the derogatory negative comments that people are just doing against type of things. It's very negative.
And that's where Google Meet kind of is a good way to, like for what you just said, in terms, they sign in, they do that, and their view. So that's where I'm hoping that we can promote that, not just see. In the, I haven't noticed the notices on the newspaper, but I can see here on the agenda, the only thing we list is the YouTube. It doesn't list the Google Meet. But the phone number isn't for Google Meet. It is? And that would allow them. Okay, because if I were to look at this, I'd say Google Meet's not noted here, because well, if Google Meet is the one that can best control the things that you're very concerned about, yeah, and the part you got shut down on is, especially with the School Board Association, they're okay with the public being able to view, and they're okay with the school district saying, you know, you can't comment on that. But our policies have 2 public comment periods on the agenda. We can't differentiate between, oh, that's a good comment, that's a bad comment, I'm not going to read that one, I'll read this one. That we can't do it. So long as public input is on our agenda, then we need to provide a venue for that to be done. A- 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 You know, public sessions can go in a direction where very agitated people would come and express that. And that can happen in the public forum just as well as it can happen in this forum. And that's all I'm saying, is public input should be unedited, and it should be reflective of what the person is saying. And I agree with you, we should know who's saying it, and we do have that ability to do that, even with the chats. So all I'm saying is, we have 2 public comment periods. We need to do the best. Even though what you've mentioned is true, that there have been some very negative things, people know more about what's going on here now than they ever did before. And that is a big plus. Before, one person would show up and they'd get ignored and they'd walk away. This has changed that dynamic where people get a better understanding of what's going on. And hopefully there'll be some change that we can reflect in that way. So I'm excited about the numbers being up really high about people that were attending online. And I think it's when we changed the meeting from 7 o'clock to 5 o'clock, we did that without proper protocol. But I think I'm going to get cut off here pretty soon, and rightfully so. But it was very blatant last week when we talked about who gets to be on a committee. That just fell on deaf ears. So are those reasons to not do what it is we can best do to provide input, public input? I don't think those reasons make that.
Well, I believe we've discussed this quite a bit, and we need to move on. Unless there's some other public comments. Go ahead, Frank.
Ms. Varela, in regards to what Mr. Guadiano was saying on the school crossing, I know I had spoken with you and we had an individual in mind. I'm not sure if you got with Mr. Avalos or not.
I did.
Okay.
I
so-
did, and we're both good with it. We just do need the background check because of a
Right,
volunteer.
and I'll direct him with Ms. Davis so he can go and speak with you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. This brings us to number 9, executive session. Motion to go into executive session. Motion by Mr. Guadiana, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Gomez. We'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Guadiana?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Mr. Cordova? Mr. Holguin?
Yeah.
Okay. We're in executive to pursuant of New Mexico State Statute 1978, Section 1015-1H. We're closed.
So we will go to the back room for
Entertain a motion to come back into open session. Motion by Mr. Guadiana, second. Second by Mr. Holguin. We're back in open. Take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We went into executive session at 6:39, and it's 7:27 right now, to discuss personality identifiable information about an individual student. No action was taken at that time. So that moves us to item 11 on the agenda, items for next agenda. Two of them will be what we tabled today. Anything else?
We only tabled one, we tabled one, right? That was the.
Oh, yeah, because we
approval
came
of
back and
August
voted,
9th.
yes. Okay, one item that was tabled. Anything else for next agenda?
I would like to suggest that we talk about posting the opening of the permanent position of superintendent, and either vote to do this on our own or vote to post a solicitation for quotes by interested parties on providing the services, or to vote on us doing it ourselves. Evidently, people the training that was done already for us to do it. That one part I missed, but I read the materials they provided. So
We have already voted that we're going to go through a service, a superintendent search service. We've already voted on that.
So then we're posting it?
Well, we need to make a decision on who we're going to go through. Which service are we going to go through?
That would bypass the requirement to post it. We need to have we need to post and.
Well, we need to post, and that it's going to be with who, so that they can start submitting their applications to them.
It's going to be with who?
Well, that's why we need to vote on who. Because we already voted that we were going to go through superintendent search organization or meeting.
That's all good and well. But for us to select who's going to do the search for us, we have to request proposals so we can make a learned decision on what it is we're going to choose, whether it's going to cost, how much it's going to cost, what things are going to be provided. These things need to be put out on a request for proposals, so that we can actually make a good choice rather than the ones that have come up to us by special invitation.
That's why I say we can't post it until we find out who, because then once we decide on who's going to go, then they can start submitting their applications to that person, because we post it right now, they don't know where to send applications.
This is true.
So that's where we are.
That's not to say that they have to. Okay, let's move aside from posting that the vacancies there, and we're soliciting applications for that. If it is that we've already voted that we're going to go through a company, then let's put out the posting requesting people that do the search submit proposals.
Okay, we can do that.
I would appreciate that. That would be awesome.
Okay.
Does that have to be on the agenda? Does that have to be on the agenda, or is that something we can go forward now?
No, that has to be on the agenda for next time.
That's fine.
Okay. Any other thing for next agenda? Motion to adjourn. Thank you, everybody.